So basically what we're going to do here is a presentation. All the home countries are going to be conducting and sharing research with you about what the athlete would like within competition based on research and statistics that has been, I guess, culminated within the last couple of years or so. So I will start our presentation. Right, so competition. What do the athletes want? I'd just like to say a special welcome to all of you that have joined us here today, and especially to everyone who's going to be presenting or helping on the chat. So we've got Donna Fraser from UKA, we've got Hannah England, who's probably the most important person on this call, representing the Athletes Commission and giving an athlete's point of view on the research that we display today. Jackie Newton from Athletics Northern Ireland, Leslie Roy from Scottish Athletics, myself, Nicola Schedule from England Athletics, and last but by no means least, Rhiannon Linnington-Payne from Welsh Athletics. So just to give you a little bit of a background into why we're doing this, we've all conducted separate research with different aims and objectives, but ultimately when we've pulled all this together, we've realised that collectively it gives some real good insight into what the athletes want, or why athletes are dropping out of track and field athletics across the whole of the UK. And so whilst we appreciate that this research is different and not necessarily aligned, we think that by sharing this good practice with everybody, it'll really help us kind of move forward within track and field competition. So like I've said previously, we'll be showing the research with you, and each of the home country leads will talk through it with you. So firstly, we'll start with England Athletics. Seeing as though I'm up, I might as well continue. So on the screen here, you can see some statistics from 2016 through to 2019 about the number of competitors within track and field competition. So as you can see, seniors and masters across the 3 years are the only age groups which have increased in number. Every other age group has decreased, which is something that we don't want to be seeing. We either want to be seeing that leveling off, and so we can keep a standard kind of plateau, or we want to be seeing those numbers increase rather than decrease. So England Athletics conducted research in 2018, and from those respondents, we looked at what are the characteristics of a lapsed athlete. So the lapsers, they tend to be more likely to be female and to be currently working either full or part-time. There was also a tendency from the respondents of the lapsers, they were more in probably the Midlands and the South area rather than the North. The lapsing tend to be not as prevalent in the North. So ultimately, I guess we look at what the main focus is within this webinar, and to address what athletes want from competition, and ultimately, I guess, why athletes drop out. So athletes dropping out can be put into 3 different areas. So the context of their lives, their individual motivations, but then sport as well. So the area that we'd be looking at and focusing on is the sport element. So 43% of the reasons that athletes do lapse from the sport is because of sporting factors. So as you can see on this screen here, it's probably not that clear, but you can see like the top one there is time constraints from studying, which is to do with context. The first one there to do with sport is that the training got boring, so that's more of a sport angle. In terms of specifically relating to competition, a little bit further down on the chart, you can see there that there's not enough opportunities to compete at my level. And another angle was that the competitions felt repetitive. So in terms of that, that means that the competitions are too samey. So it's just the same format churned out time and time again. And as another angle on that, it's that they're competing against the same people time and time again, rather than different athletes, and so they're getting the same results time and time again, and that can lead to demotivation. So the research also highlighted that it was felt that competitions are rigid, and they fail to engage some younger athletes, and it was highlighted that open competitions were seen as best practice, whereby competitions like league competitions, for example, they were saying that it was geared towards more higher level athlete competition, and it was kind of a bit fierce and a bit intimidating to some of the younger athletes. So when thinking specifically about younger athletes, some of the problems that they highlighted were that competition seemed to be generally very serious, that there wasn't really an aspect there as to be shown as fun or social, and it lacked excitement, and it felt quite boring, which I guess, you know, none of us want to be hearing that, you know, at all. But we're all very aware of the long travel times to competitions in some instances, and that's what athletes were highlighting to be an issue and a potential barrier as to why they would not attend competitions. And linked to that, it's when they're doing these long travel times, they're only potentially competing in one discipline, and so it's not actually worth the amount of time traveling for that one discipline. Leading on from that as well, they were saying that competitions can often take up an entire weekend, so that means that they don't have any other time for social activities, and because they've identified that the athletics competition doesn't feel social, they need to have that other aspect of social to be able to hit, I guess, their individual motivations and their individual needs. And I guess finally, when we're looking at our competition season, something that we can all identify with is that the athletes have said that there is a big clash with exam periods, which adds to the athletes' stress levels quite a lot. If I move on to the next slide here, you can just see there's a direct quote from an athlete comment from the survey, which really just solidifies everything that I've just been saying in the previous slide. So I'd prefer shorter events with music and food and drink and to be more relaxed. And currently you have to travel from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and everyone gets grumpy and feels exhausted. So that's just an example of what one athlete quoted on the research that we had. So I guess, what do we do about this? Is there a solution? Well, it's for us to decide ultimately. From the research that was conducted, it seemed to be that there was 4 main areas that the athletes seemed to want focus upon for competition to be improved, to make it more engaging and more relevant for them. So we're looking at the competition format, so the length of the meeting, travel times, appropriate level of competition and enjoyment and engagement. We're looking at competition scheduling and structure, so the right number of competitions at the right time and for the right people. Competition promotion, greater clarity of what opportunities exist, and improved visibility and event entry. And then I guess partially linked onto that would be digital transformation. So improved quality and consistency of event entry, competition management, athlete and spectator engagement, results reporting and visualization. So, you know, this is a lot to take in. I can appreciate that. That is a lot of things that we would need to change, you know, in some aspects. But ultimately, we need to be meeting these athletes part way. We can't be expecting the athletes to change their behaviour to match our sport. I guess we need to be changing our behaviour and our competitions to ensure that youngsters still want to take part in athletics and they don't choose another sport. That's top level from England Athletics. Down at the bottom there, you can see that there's a link. The full details of the survey that we conducted can be seen on that link as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I will now pass on to Jackie from Northern Ireland Athletics.
Thanks, Nicola. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see the slides that I've got here. Before I start, just a little bit of background from me as to the surveys that we conducted last year and this year. And it partly came about as a result of working with England and the other home nations as well. So these competition meetings between the 4 home nations have been going on now for a couple of years. And England had shared that research that they've just shared with you. So we were in discussion around the reasons for the dropout and what we could do about it. So much of the research that we then did, we were already funneling down really into those issues. So We started with having some conversations at competitions, conversations at the track, around Northern Ireland, talking to coaches and parents, and a lot of the issues that Nicola has spoken about, really started to try to find out from our coaches and our parents if these were the same kind of issues. We haven't got the depth of research on participation across all of track and field competitions, but we have got our numbers from our championships, which are on the slide now. We can see on there that the numbers are different from under 14s to under 14s through to under 17s to under 18s and under 20s, which suggests that perhaps there is, we are also losing athletes in that age band. You can see that the red is where we've had less numbers at championships than the year before. So we have lost quite a few in that age, under 14 to under 17 age group year on year. The under 18s to under 20s isn't as bad. It looks like we're pretty healthy there, actually. So perhaps it is that those athletes that have stayed on through from under 17 and have wanted to have athletics as their sport, they are more committed through the under 18, under 20 years. The seniors are a little bit skewed, and probably the under 20s actually as well, because every 4 years part of the criteria for our Commonwealth Games selection is that they compete at our championships. So you'll see every 4 years there's a nice healthy rise in numbers. But yeah, that's just a bit of an overview really of where we're up to with our championships. So this, like I say, some of the conversations that we've been having in the competition strategy meetings informed the questions that we asked in a survey that we put out at the end of the 2019 season. And we looked at the length of meetings, we looked at travel time, we looked at the type of events that athletes needed and wanted at each stage of their development pathway and the overall structure. And what we found from this survey was that more than 50% of athletes, 58%, that wanted to be at a meeting between 2 and 4 hours. Only 33% said they'd go up to 6 hours, and only 4% really wanted to be there all day. Travel time, similar, 47% said they were willing to travel up to an hour away from home. Only 2% said they'd travel up to 90 minutes. 12% said they'd be willing to travel up to 2 hours. Oh, that's the pie chart really. For the how long an athlete was prepared to be at an open meeting or a league meeting, which traditionally has gone on, for the entire day. So the question, we also sent surveys out to the coaches as well, and some of the questions for the coaches were around what they felt their athletes needed from the meets at different development stages. And this really came about, like I say, from conversations that we'd had at competitions, at league meetings and at open meetings, to find out, how many of their athletes are actually coming along to training, but then choosing not to compete. And there were instances of that where coaches were saying, well, they're happy to come and train. They're here with their friends and they enjoy training, but they actually find competition a bit scary. And I think this is reflected in the numbers here. So 61%, first bullet point there is about the number of meets per season that they felt were needed, but more imperative really for this conversation is 55% said at that entry level, when the athletes are just starting off in their athletics and their athletics career, they want fun to be the main element. And there was a good proportion as well said that they wanted to focus on skill development and technical improvement. So it's not just about getting from A to B in the 100 meters with any kind of technique or running style that you want, but they wanted some way, and this is something we're thinking about for that level of development, whether there's a way we can work competitions so that there's a level of skill development and technical improvement that can be incorporated into it as well. 74% of coaches agreed or strongly agreed that athletes specialise too early. So that's interesting as well. And certainly has started us thinking about the need for that multi-event approach at the foundation level, and giving athletes that much more rounded experience and a much more fun experience as well.